So hopefully we'll keep this short, sweet, and to the point. If you were in one of my sessions like yesterday, this is a repeat session, so it was over in a different area. But I just wanted to give you some of those resources to reach out and use. Again, it's more for those new people, and so I appreciate you staying. I know it's hard after 2 days to stay in here. So I sit on the Midwest Cover Crops Council, and I guess that's one of the things that, as Jim Horman and Alan came in, my extension position was one that was in threat. As I was hired to extension, our county's a levy county, and so I found out 6 months after I got there, and so they took me along on some of the grants, and they helped break up that time that we needed through. So one of the things that they got me hooked on was working on this cover crop tool selector. I think they'd done it for so long, they said, hey, we want someone else to start to take over some of this. But it made me find a place. So a few resources. Alan and Vinayak had talked about some of the different things through SARE. If you use that SARE website, there are so many resources there, and I'll just point out a few. We have the cover crops for pollinators and beneficial insects. That's a free handout that you can get. Many of our extension offices have a copy of those, but you can also download those from the internet. Another resource that I think is kind of the backbone that leads into what I'm going to talk most about is the cover crop tool selector. And this is a book called Managing Cover Crops Profitably. Goodness, can't talk today. But that resource is $26 on the website, or you can download that. It's about 282 pages long, and so you can download that for free. But I will tell you, it's one of the best resources. One of the things that I like, if I take off my extension educator hat, is some of those farmer stories on how they're using cover crops. And so that is across the whole U.S. So it's got a lot of great basic information on cover crops. So we used that Managing Cover Crops Profitably to come up with our Cover Crops Field Guide, that second edition. And that one is a small pocket guide. They're $5.50 each. We are getting ready to do another print of those. So if you call the Purdue store or some of your local extension offices, I know a lot of our soil and water in the area have copies of those. You can stop in and pick those up. There's also an app. There's always an app for that, but there's an app for this one that you can download and purchase through the Google Play Store or Apple Store. But this is a small pocket guide. It's not as in-depth as the Managing Cover Crops Profitably, but it, again, is one of those other resources that you can use. And so it leads me to the cover crop tool selector that's housed at the Midwest Cover Crops Council website at Michigan State. So that tool selector, I was hoping to tell you that we have the new version out, and it was supposed to be released February 20th, but we had some programmer issues, so I am going to go through what it looks like currently, but I will tell you this is getting a brand new facelift, and so that is about 10 years worth of information, so it's about 10 years old, and so we had a Warner grant through Midwest Cover Crops Council. We have updated that. I will tell you the new version, while I can't show you all of it. It's very much a little bit more user-friendly. If you use a mobile, it's not an app, but if you use a phone to look at those things, you'll be able to go through that very easily. The one thing I will caution you, this tool is used for those first-time people starting to use cover crops to give you an idea of whether it's seeding rates, or what time of the year should I plant this, or what are some of the advantages and disadvantages. But the part that I want to remind you, if you're looking at this for, let's say, H2 Ohio, please realize that the seeding rates in this are not necessarily what is required for H2 Ohio or EQIP or one of those programs. So this is, if you're using cover crops and raising them, it gives you a range of seeding rates. And so just use that as a caution that these might be higher and these might be lower, but they are some research-based information. The part that I like with the new update is we did use farmer input on that information, and so as we look at those, it's based on weather data for 30 years, and so it is going to break down, and I'll show you how it breaks down, between vegetable crops and row crops. Now, not every state has that vegetable crop tool, but many of them do. We're going to focus today on that row crop tool. And so when you go to that website, you'll choose vegetable crops or row crops. and then you actually choose your state and your county. And so we'll zoom in a little bit. After that, the third thing you'll do, it's pretty simple and quick. You'll choose what is your cash crop, or hopefully we're never in a year like last year, but you can choose prevent plant. And that was built in there before last year, I will tell you that. It had been in there for over 10 years. But again, it was one of those options that we needed to look at. And so you use approximations. So you'll put in your cash crop. Again, those choices are listed there. And then you'll choose approximately the dates that you will, sorry, I'm one step ahead. Then you're going to choose your drainage information. And so you'll look at that. It'll also ask you, are you using field tile, yes or no? And then it will ask you a very simple question. What type, if it floods, is that flooding not at all, brief, up to 7 days, or longer than 7 days? And so you click through those different options, and then you're going to choose your goals. And so what I recommend is, if you're starting off, start simple. Don't put all 3 goals in there at the beginning. It gives you the option to give you those goals such as, I'm looking for something as a nitrogen source, or a nitrogen scavenger, or a soil builder, erosion fighter, weed fighter. I want this for good grazing, quick growth, lasting residue, mechanical harvest forage value, grain seed harvest value, or interseed with a cash crop. I will tell you there's going to be a few more new options. There's a little more with interseeding with the new tool. It's not listed on this old one, but again, you'll see some of that interseeding. The goal is to work by eliminating the cover crops that don't work in that situation. And so that you'll see ratings of, you won't see the 0 and 1 because it blanks out the cover crop, but 2 is good, 3 is very good, and 4 is excellent. And so with each goal, you'll see a number. Now I know you can't see this, and I know this won't work, but just to the right of each species, the very first one, if you can see that, is winter barley, they put a small number and it's in blue. And so that very small number tells you 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes? I'm sorry, what was that? So, what's a good cover crop to put out there to be a good phosphorus scavenge? That part is not in there. I will tell you that. We talked about that, but there was not enough research to back up when we redid the Selector tool, because it's a 12-state area and not all those states, because some states wanted that phosphorus, some did not. So with our grant, we did not have that limitation, or we had that limitation to not put that in there. But we did add in the interseeding. So it will not tell you what's a good one, but one of the things we're going to start to look at, I know in Paulding County, we're getting ready to do some research with some winter camelina, whether that will work or not. But one of those things, it's just a different one. But I know Lee Brees talked about it yesterday. It's one I think we need to just take a look at. Whether it'll work or not, I don't know if our hard winters, that vernalization is enough, and that's what that winter camelina needs. But again, that uses phosphorus when it grows. And so it works on those heavy, wet clay soils. And so looking at some of Northwest Ohio, it might be a new one to look at. And then, yes, buckwheat, and that's what we've traditionally used.
Some of your brassicas are really good at that, and some of your grasses too.
Yeah, so it just, I mean, I think it has to fit your system. I'm going to keep going through this part, but just due to time, because I know some of you have been here for long days. But again, it puts those ratings beside that. You will see up to 3. If you choose 3 overall goals, you'll look at all 3 goals on there. It will blank them out, like I said, if they don't work. The green and yellow bars in the center, as well as the red. The red doesn't mean stop, you can't do this. That just means frost seeding. That color will change next time. They're a little bit more user-friendly. One of the things we had input on is if you're colorblind, it's hard to see those. And so that green is, it's a good time to plant that. Yellow means just let's look, there could be some limitations. And then that red is you can frost seed. So what it does then, and this is the part that I think farmers didn't realize when I started working with them with this, if you click on the species, if it doesn't blank out that it's not a good option at all, it gives you more information. So you actually have to click on the name on that left-hand side, like winter barley. And what it does is bring up another sheet of information that you can print. These are about 1 page long. The other part you need to do is drop down those different characteristics, and I'll show you that on the next slide. But it goes through and it shows you advantages, disadvantage, seeding rates, or the range of seeding rates. And then at the bottom of the page, it links you to different websites like NRCS, or it's the fertilizer recommendations. It's important though, like I said, those ranges might not work for your specific program. Maybe it was the small grains program, or maybe it is, like I said, H2 Ohio. So just realize that those limitations are listed there. Again, advantages, disadvantage, seeding rate, some concerns. It will list your county, whatever county you chose, for each one of those. You can go back and forth and click on those species. The one thing that will be gone with the new selector tool, we have mixes at the bottom. So if you want those mix combinations, I say download that information now, because the mixes are leaving the tool selector. Again, print that information for your comparison to help you make your decisions or to back what you are using currently. Maybe something didn't work and maybe you found that there were some disadvantages. Again, I recommend looking back to that managing cover crops profitably. If some of those ratings are listed here, if you need more, there's more in that piece of information, and that's what it's based on. So with that, I'll take a few questions, but we're going to get you out of here on plenty of early time. Yeah.
Will the newest variety have those recipes in for people if they're just looking for something to give them an idea to consider?
So he's asking about the new recipes. And so at the Midwest Cover Crops Council website, and I'll go back to that, while that's the link to the selector tool, there are some brand new first-time recipes for new cover crop users. We have 2 up. I have 2 more almost finished. So we have currently a post corn and a post soybeans. And so those are listed here at just the mcc.msu.edu. And then we'll have one post silage and post wheat coming out very soon. And so we're through that review process with those. But it's another good place to start, a little more in-depth than this, but it gives you those simple oats and radish combination or cereal rye if you've never used cover crops.